Have you ever wondered what kind of a God would send people to hell for having certain beliefs? Or why would a loving God sacrifice his only son on the cross? Is there really not a better way? Or if you're in the midst of deep questioning or rebuilding your faith, I hope that today's episode feels like water for your soul. In this episode of Jesus Energy, we have the opportunity to connect with Jeremy Jernigan. He is an incredibly gifted theologian that shares wisdom that is in alignment with Jesus. He is an extremely talented writer and the published author of the new book, The Edge of the Inside: When Losing Your Place Means Finding Your Soul. After 2 decades as a megachurch pastor, he now supports people in online community to help rebuild their faith and to create safe space for the deep and difficult questions that arise when we're living authentic lives with Jesus. He's an extremely gifted teacher, writer, and a loving husband and father to 5 kids. I'm so grateful you're here at Jesus Energy, where we move beyond beliefs and focus on embodying the healing, transformative, and loving frequency of Christ. It is dedicated to anyone who wants to be spiritually curious and expansive, while also rooted into the love of Jesus. To those that are wondering if they're still a Christian, yet know they want to hold on to the relationship with Jesus. To those that want to move into a more experiential dimension of Christianity, and to anyone and everyone longing to cultivate heaven on earth and come more fully alive. This is for us. This episode is all about diving into the deep and difficult questions that many of us ask as we move through an authentic faith. I just hope it brings light to your day. You're awesome. You're a gift. You hold a light that only you can shine. And as my friend Carl McColman says, Jesus says, he is the light of the world, and he also says, you are the light of the world. Let's get to it, and I hope this helps us shine our lights authentically today. So much goodness to you. Let's do it. I'm so excited to be here with Jeremy Jernigan, a writer, published author of this new fabulous book, The Edge of the Inside, speaker, recovering megachurch pastor, so many things, a podcaster, just a really awesome human, extremely talented writer. I'm so glad to have you with me. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for all those nice things you just said. That's
Well, I'm
very
just
kind of
getting
you.
started. Can I actually gush on you for a second on
I
your
mean, that
work?
feels a little weird, but it's your podcast. So.
Like, nice to meet you, and here we go. We're just meeting for the first time. But when you read someone's work, it's like I feel like I've already gotten to know you in some ways,
Yeah.
even though you have no idea who I am. So not to be creepy, but so many cool things. Okay, so I love your book. It is so well written. Like, the way that you thread stories through your writing and take huge theological concepts and make them digestible is a true gift. And you mention Greg Boyd and Rob Bell in your book and how they've been pivotal for you. And I see why you connect with them, because you definitely have very similar attributes to them in those storytelling and deep theological understanding. And also, something that I love about your book is that, okay, so we both enjoy Greg Boyd, and he is the one that taught me that, he uses the quote, God made man in his image, and man, being the gentleman that he is, returned the favor. And, talks a lot about how we're naturally inclined to project our own image onto God, and how we can only know love and compassion as deep as we know love and compassion. All that to say, what I love about your book is that I felt like Jesus and God were free from projection, and you let the reader be over here kind of wrestling with difficulty or questions and doubts, while Jesus and God are the only word that comes to mind is pure, So yeah, that's all.
Well,
Thanks
that
for letting
is
me gush.
an incredibly kind thing for you to say. You just mentioned two of my heroes who, I mean, they're brilliant on levels I'll never understand. But I do love what they do is certainly what I strive to just scratch the surface of, which is, can you take something big,
Yeah.
something complicated,
Yes.
something that you're like, wow, that's a lot, and make it really tangible? And
Yeah.
to me, there's something amazing when you see the lights come on for someone
Yeah.
with a new idea or
Mhm.
an experience with God or something. They go, "Oh my goodness, I've never understood that before." And, for me with God, it's like I grew up in the church. I grew up with all the projections of God that,
Mhm.
those of us with that background have. I'm a second generation preacher. So I was the kid running around the pews. I have all of that.
Yeah.
And, you were told like God is this way and not that way and this way,
Mhm.
not that way. And so, okay. And, that works. And then my journey was just realizing like, I think God's bigger than this. And I
Mm.
don't know how to go on that journey, and
Yeah.
for me, it meant I had to kind of leave my tribe behind
Yeah.
and explore some new tribes.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about what this book is doing is it's making more room for others on the edge where
Yeah.
you don't have to fit. You don't have to adhere to this belief or that belief. You can just
Yes.
experience Jesus and
Yes.
be true to that. And I
Yep.
I just love that conversation.
Same, same. Yeah, that's like my heart for this podcast as well is to move beyond beliefs and to focus on embodying Jesus, the Jesus energy. Okay, so I'm so excited to get in your book, but first I would simply love to hear from you, like anything from your mission in life to what you would love to do if you were given a free afternoon.
Wow. So the easiest way I've made sense of what I'm trying to do these days,
Yeah.
which is very different than what I spent 2 decades in full-time ministry. I was a lead
Was
pastor,
it
thought
two
I was going to
decades?
retire.
Wow.
Yeah. Thought I was going to
Yeah.
retire in that role, like literally
Yes.
loved it.
Yes.
Discovered it wasn't for me, which I
Yeah.
think maybe a lot of your listeners have discovered things that they thought were the dream. Then you're like, this isn't my dream.
Yeah.
So I discovered that. And so now what I really try to do is help people rebuild their faith after it breaks.
Yeah.
So after something falls apart, after you realize, hey, your theology wasn't enough to get you through this season you're going through or this
Yeah.
thing that just happened to you.
Yes.
That was the thing for me when I walked away after a pretty traumatic departure from ministry, which is part one of the book.
Yeah.
People would ask me, are you and Jesus okay? And
Yeah.
it was like, yeah, Jesus and I are fine. The church and I have some things we got to work through,
Yeah.
but I didn't equate it with Jesus because I had already done this work. I had already rethought Jesus. I had
Mm.
already, so Jesus, my view of Jesus was able to withstand
Yep.
all of the the bullshit that I had to go through. But for
Right.
a lot of people, that's where it breaks, where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, and I have found if the only version of Jesus is from like one church community,
Yeah.
then if things ever go south with that church community, you also tend to lose your view of Jesus because that's the only Jesus you know.
Yes.
So I love helping people like, let's build a more robust understanding, a more robust experience with Jesus. And, it's not a one size fits all type deal.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the answer to your
I
first
love
question.
that.
I don't know.
A
I'll just talk,
robust understanding of Jesus. I love that so much. And what do you like to do in your free time?
Oh man,
What brings you joy?
I love to read. I love enjoying a good beverage with friends. So
Love
I'm a
that.
huge wine guy, but there's something about sharing a bottle or, being in a wine tasting with friends. Like that's like an ideal afternoon is doing that. I don't
Yeah.
live near any wineries, so that makes that a little bit difficult. But I'm raising 5 kids right now,
You have
so
5. That's
yeah, so I don't have a
amazing.
ton of time for hobbies. Like my
Yeah.
wife and I just before this were like, okay, so we just have to like talk like, all right, which kid has to be where at what time?
Right.
And it is, I
Right.
mean, it's like
Yeah.
it's a math equation that you learn in school of the two trains in the night. It's like how do
Yes.
you get everybody to the right place?
Yes.
I like being a dad. I like being a husband. I
Yeah.
like family
Oh.
time. And my kids are all young right now. So our oldest is
Hmm.
17, youngest is 10.
Hmm.
And so like I'm in a unique season, right? Where it's like
Yes.
they're not all going to be in the home forever, but right now.
Yes.
So I reassure myself of that, Kate, when I
Yes.
when I feel like I'm not as productive in my day as I like I didn't get a ton done. And I'm like, you know what? You were dad today. You were there. You did pickups, drop offs, all that. So
I love that. And I'm amazed because your oldest is 17 and then youngest 10. And I have an almost 16-year-old and an 11-year-old. And somehow you have two more humans. How did you do that?
yeah, you weren't
And
as crazy as we were.
and I want to touch on this later too, but something that stood out to me in the like lead up to the release of your book was your sweet relationship with your wife.
Mhm.
and how, like, some of the videos that she did, I was genuinely touched by that, and, like, the
Hmm.
authentic support that was there. I love that. So, I can just feel that you're very
She is
authentic with enjoying that.
so incredible and such a gift, to the point where I've literally told her, "You need to, like, sell this part of you and let other people, like, hire you to do this," because she
Yes,
is the ultimate champion for people.
I love that.
And what's so cool about her is, like, and she'll say this,
Yeah.
she can think of more ideas of things to promote me than she can think of ideas of, like, what she wants to do. Like, that's just the way her brain is
Wow.
wired, is like,
Yeah.
"You've got this going on. Here's, here's 10
Wow,
things I can
that's
think of."
cool.
And I'm like, "You need to, like, do something with this because it's a gift,
Yeah.
and people's brain is not wired like that." But, I mean, yeah, if anyone watched, like, my social media stuff, not only, like, the regular content I do, what's funny is the thing that has made me most well known, that most people know me for, is this
Yeah.
series we do on TikTok called "Jer, I Have a Question."
Yeah.
And it is 3-minute or less videos. She'll
Yeah.
ask me some random question. It's all her idea. She always comes up with, I don't know what's coming. That is the thing more people know me for than
Yeah.
any book I've written, any sermon I've done, any blog I mean,
Yeah.
none of that.
I didn't
It's
know that it
these
was between you 2.
Yeah, so it's just
I
her
love
asking these
that.
questions, and then she
Yeah.
does this thing where it's like her walking from her desk to mine, and it's her feet, like, sped up walking, and it's people love. I don't
Yeah.
understand it. People love it.
Yeah.
But, like, I literally have told her, I'm like, you're the champion of everything I do." And so I hope everybody has a partner like that, where
Mm.
you find someone that you're just like, "I am a bazillion times more me and a better me because of you." And that's how I feel about my wife, Michelle.
That's stunning. That gives me goosebumps. Yes, that's the ultimate goal. I love that. Okay, so your book, The Edge of the Inside, how did it come about? Why did it need to be born into the world? And who did you write it for?
So good. It came about through a lot of pain.
Mm.
And when, I think we process pain differently, right, as humans, like, based on what makes sense to you. I'm a writer, so I have to
Mm.
write. I have to, like,
Yeah.
process the words. I have to get them out. And
Yeah.
even in the process of getting them out, it helps me refine, how am I feeling? So it's like
Yes.
seeing the words. So even, like,
Yes.
that's how I think about journaling for me, is like seeing, like, I'm the observer of my own thoughts, and I
Mhm.
get to learn from my own thoughts. And it's like,
Mm.
oh, this
I
is
feel
how I'm
that.
feeling. This is how
Yep.
I'm seeing.
Yep.
So for me, it was like, it started there. I have to write this out
Yes.
because this jacked me up,
Yeah.
and I need to do a deep dive. Then I realized this is what tons of people are feeling. And not this the specifics are different, right? But
Yeah.
that has been the coolest, most encouraging part of the book,
Mm.
is not people saying, "Oh, Jeremy, like, what a fascinating story." It's people telling me, "This is my story too." And
Yes.
obviously the details are different, but what they're saying is, I so resonate with
Oh,
what this story is getting at. And,
right.
like, as a writer, that's the coolest thing in the world, that you're like,
Yep.
I was
That's all
able to
you
write
want.
something
Yep.
that connected to all of these other people's journeys. And, like,
Yep.
I mean, that's like, I don't care what the book sells. Like, just to have that moment, you're like,
Yes.
that is so, so encouraging. And that's what's
Yes.
that's what's been really cool. So it's the whole idea is a Richard Rohr phrase of moving
Yep.
from the edge to, from the center to the edge. And
Yes.
his idea was that we expect the center to be where most truth is found. So if you want to
Yes.
go to find God, you got to go to the center of that. And, Richard Rohr makes this argument that no, truth is found on the edges and not in the center. And that was like, that's what I realized. Like, that's been my journey. Like, I
Mm.
came from this center for
Mm.
decades, thought it was the end all be all. And then I moved to the edge and started coming to life in totally new
Mm.
ways,
Mm.
and yet unpredictable ways, and ways that are hard to explain. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I would never want to go back. I'm grateful for where I've been. It's helped
Yes.
me have the perspective on today. But
Yeah.
that's where I'm really passionate about with the book today, is like, how do
Yes.
we make more room for
Yes.
people on the edge,
I love
where you're
that.
not being gaslit, you're not being told something's wrong with you, you're not,
Right. Yes.
like, second guessing everything you feel or think, but you
Yeah.
realize, like, I'm amongst a sea of people who
Yes.
are experiencing this, and there's validation in that. And so I think that's the goal that I have for the
Mm.
book, is for people to realize their journey with God doesn't have to fit in
Yep.
and there's room for you on the edge. And it's the people that have been told, like, "Something's wrong with you. You don't have enough faith. You didn't do this right. You're"
Mm.
whatever.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of us, Kate. There's
Yes.
a lot of us. That's what I'm learning.
Would you like to share a little bit of your story of moving from the center to the edge?
Sure. And I get into some of the gnarlier details of this in part 1, but
It
I'll
was
give you
it's really fascinating to read. That was an unexpected piece for me, was to read your journey of leaving your job as a pastor. Some parts that, like, really broke my heart, shocked me, really moving. I'm really glad that you shared that.
well, thank you. I
Yeah.
don't think people I don't think the typical person, even if I've gone to church my whole life. I don't
Yeah.
think unless you've been in the room
Yeah.
when it's, all those conversations are happening, I don't think the typical person understands what goes into running a church
Mhm.
and what kind of things get said in
Yeah.
these rooms, right? And
Right.
so some of those are the stories I'm like, I'm going to tell you what was said to me. I want to
Mhm.
tell you what the conversations were. And, some people that have not loved the book have said to me, you're just bitter and you had one bad experience and you let this
Mm.
make you bitter. And I
Mm.
really don't feel any bitterness at all.
Yeah.
I would say I had a bad experience. Yes,
Yes.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And it opened my eyes to some flaws in what we have all kind of accepted as the normal way to do things. And so for me, I second generation preacher's kid, so grew up in the church, loved it, always had great experiences. And it was like, I had my ups and downs, but, like, I loved it. I loved
Mm.
ministry. I loved what I got to see from my parents, and then I wanted to do it. Went to college, graduated, dove right into ministry, and I would say for, like, 2 decades, my career was, like, up and to the right,
Mm.
more opportunities,
Mm.
more responsibility, and so, there's one point I'm managing, like, $4 million worth of budget,
Mm.
60 employees. I'm preaching to thousands of people every weekend. So, like,
Yeah.
I got to taste it all. I got to
Yeah.
experience it all,
Yeah.
and I thought, "This is what I want. This
Yeah.
is this is the big show. This is it." And then really clearly ended up moving to the Northwest, Pacific Northwest for a dream job that was a multi-site mega church. And again, thought, "I'm gonna retire. This is it, right into the sunset," and realized what it takes to keep that machine going is not something I'm interested in participating in.
Mm.
And that was the big aha. And then it was,
Mm.
okay, did you just waste your
Mm.
life,
Mm.
40 years of your life going this direction to now realize you don't want to do it anymore?
Yeah.
Like that is a gut-wrenching realization of, I have a master's degree in theology. And I remember thinking, did I waste all of this time, all of this money, all of this effort, like in stuff that I don't want to have anything to do with anymore?
Yeah.
And for a season that's where I was. Like I wasn't really preaching anywhere. I wasn't I just I didn't like am I a pastor still? Like I
Yeah.
didn't know who I was anymore.
Right.
And so, for me it was the breaking point came in 2020. It's the middle of COVID. Everything's already funky with the church, and anyone who was in any church at that time remembers like
Yep.
you're not seeing people, you're not meeting. Everything was
Yep.
kind of like, how do we do this?
Yep.
Then George Floyd was murdered, and I was in Portland, which became one of the hubs of the reaction to that, where we were one of the cities where it was very vocal, the response. And so
Yeah.
I'm watching everyone around me
Yeah.
have this conversation. And to me, it was the biggest no brainer. This is what the church is called to be. Like we meet people here. We dive into this conversation. We bring hope. We bring, like this is where we are.
Yeah.
And so I just started like preaching about what was going on in real time in our country. I
Yeah.
started inviting friends of mine who were black to write on my blog, and I stopped writing for a few weeks and just said, "Hey, I want to have people, especially my white audience, learn from you. Like what are you feeling right now? What are you processing?"
Right.
And I went to a local march that was, a little protest march that was put on by the high school, and I invited our staff to do it. And, as Kate knows, reading the book, you would have thought I like disowned Jesus completely. I mean, it was
Mm.
like within 2 weeks, all of a sudden, my elder board meets with me, gives me an ultimatum. They now have concerns about my theology and concerns about
Mhm.
my leadership
Yeah.
in 2 weeks. And
Yeah.
it was a wild, like, what is happening? And I'm told, hey, you need to take a month off. You don't get to preach, you don't get to use social media, and you don't get to use your blog for a month. And your silence is the way you keep your job. And then when you come back a month from now, just preach Jesus. That's what we want.
Yeah.
And that was like most people don't have the choice presented to them as clear as that. That
Mhm.
was like, am I going to back up what I said I was always in this for, which is to follow Jesus and do what I sense Jesus doing? Or
Yes.
am I really about self-preservation and keeping this thing going?
Mm.
Because it's good. And it was good. I loved it. I made a killer salary. I mean, I had the respect of the community, like great job, loved it.
Yeah.
And I realized very clearly Jesus saying like, it's time to give all this up.
Wow.
And that was the craziest season of my life where I turned in my resignation. I said, I am not interested in being the kind of pastor that you guys want.
Mm.
And we lost all of our friends, minus literally a handful of people that, I mean, just disowned us, wouldn't talk to us, and had to move. I mean, it was devastating. And it
Mm.
took me about 5 years of sitting in that place before I could even
Wow.
make sense of it.
Wow.
And so I talk about liminal space a lot.
Yeah.
That was like 5 years of liminal space of I don't know who I am, what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And if you would have talked to me 3 years ago, you'd be like, "What are you doing?" I don't know, Kate. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to figure it out, and
Yeah.
it sucks entering, into your 40s having no clue what you're doing. You feel
Yeah.
like I should be putting some things together at this point in my life. And yet I was like, I feel like I'm just beginning. The cool thing, so that's a very long answer to your question. The cool thing is, after all that pain, after that
Yes.
journey, the last couple years starting to see how God is making sense of it for me and
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't have to go back to that. I can
Mm.
use all of that.
Yeah.
And so the image I use in the book
Yeah.
is we let the previous versions of ourselves, we don't
Mm.
have to like be ashamed of them. We don't have
Yes.
to like run from them.
Yep.
We compost them.
Yes.
You let it die
Yep.
and you let it become the soil
Yes.
that the new you is going to grow out of. And
Yep.
that's the image I love of
Yes.
all these versions of me. I
Yeah.
take them, they're dead, they don't
Yeah.
exist anymore, but
Yeah.
they became the compost that this version of me has grown out of.
Yes, I love that. That's such a beautiful visual. Along with that, what else would you say like pulled you forward through that liminal space and time?
I mean, it was Jesus, and again, having a beautiful picture of Jesus
Yeah.
matters. And so I
Yeah.
think there's some people that might like part 2 of the book is all theology,
Yeah.
and I could see some people like, "Why do we need to have this much theology in this kind of a book?"
Yeah.
But to me, that's how you
Yes.
navigate these kind of seasons. So, like, if
Yep.
you don't have a beautiful picture of Jesus,
Yep.
you're not gonna wanna follow him
Right.
when you start experiencing this. To me, I
Yes.
had such a compelling view that I'm like, "I gotta keep going. I got"
Yeah.
and it was like, I still think Jesus is the most true thing, the most
Hmm.
beautiful thing, the thing that makes
Yeah.
more sense than anything else I've ever seen.
Yes.
That's what got me through.
Yeah.
And then I would say people, the people who are there for you
Yeah.
when everyone
Hmm.
else walks away and the ones
Yeah.
that don't. But
Yep.
more importantly, what I've learned is you meet new people that you never would have met and it had things gone the way you wanted them to go.
Yep.
And what we would love to say is, I want to meet the new people and keep all the old people,
Yes.
right? I have found it doesn't work like that. You have to endure the
Hmm.
loss of the people that are like, I'm not
Hmm.
going with you anymore. Like
Yeah.
this isn't for me. And
Yeah.
again, that was brutal.
Yeah.
And yet now I look at the people that, have since come into my life and I'm just incredibly
Hmm.
grateful. And, I tell them regularly, like, you're the ones that give me hope. Like
Hmm.
when I have those days where I'm like, this whole thing is like too far gone, I
Yeah.
just look at these people and I'm like, but, I can think of them and I can think of
Yeah.
them. And it's like, all right, there are people embodying something beautiful.
Yep.
I just got to show up each day the way they're showing up.
Yes, that's stunning. And I'm pausing because this is really corny, but here we are. As you said that, I felt like as you talked about how much you love Jesus and then these people, I just felt like I saw like Jesus shining through them, through their faces to you, and Jesus showing up for you in that way.
I mean,
Like, not to be corny, but
no, that's what it was. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like, I think people walk away when you
yeah,
have a traumatic experience or you have a bad
yeah,
experience. You walk away because you think, if Jesus is the way these people are portraying it,
yeah,
I don't want that.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've told people, and I usually get an interesting response to this, but I'm like, look, if you were to tell me, I told my therapist this week, and he laughed at me. If you were to tell me
I'm
that
excited.
I have to go back
Yeah.
and believe in Jesus the way I used to, or the
Uh-huh.
way that people wanted me to, I
Yeah.
wouldn't follow God. Like, I'd be out, and I would say, like,
Yeah.
not interested in that at all. And so that's how serious it is. But
Yes.
because I don't have to go there, because I've seen, like, oh, it doesn't have to be like that, that's what gives me the chance to keep going. That's where it's like, yeah, I absolutely see Jesus's face through new people that they also would never have fit in that old model either.
Hmm.
And together we provide that encouragement to one another. And that's
Yeah.
what, that's why I love these kind of conversations. I
Yep.
love meeting more people. You're like, you too? Like
Yeah.
you've experienced this, and it's like
This gives me
there's that
hope. Yeah.
energy of like, we're not
Yes.
alone. Like,
Right.
oh,
It's
this is
so true.
awesome.
And even you just saying you met more people, I'm like, "You did? Where? Tell me."
Yeah, right.
Okay, so you talk about theology being really important, and I am curious, like, Greg Boyd wrote the foreword to your book. I love Greg Boyd too, as I said. What was it about his teaching that was formative for you, and what, like, theology shifted perhaps how you saw Jesus from, like, that old way that you mentioned to how you see Jesus now?
Good question. I love these kind of conversations. All right.
Same.
So I went to seminary
Yep.
and so early 20s, and read everything, graduated, and I'm an expert. I'm ordained. I've got it figured out. And it was the first time I was like, okay, for a long time I've always had books I had to read for school. Now I don't
Yeah.
have anything. Well,
Yes. Oh,
I'm
yeah.
just a lifelong learner. I love reading. So I'm
Yes.
like, all right, now I can pick any book I want to read because I don't
Mm.
have textbooks.
Yes.
So I just started reading things, and I don't necessarily recommend these books because they're not the most entertaining, but those books that are like four views of whatever. I don't know if you've seen these, but like
I don't know if I have.
they're the
Tell me
nerdiest
more.
theology books.
Okay, cool.
Four views on God's, like whatever, some
Yeah.
attribute about
Yeah.
God, and it's like
Yeah.
four different theologians will argue
Cool.
different stances. Okay,
Sure.
so I started reading these because I was just
Yeah.
like, hey, I want to see their ideas I don't know about.
Yeah.
So I read this book called Four Views of Divine Foreknowledge. Okay.
Okay.
And it's basically, how does God know what God knows? How does God know the future? Like,
Interesting.
in what
Yeah.
way does that play out?
Yeah.
So I read this book and I'm reading these four views. Well, I get to a view called the open view of God, or open
Yes.
theism, by
Yes.
Greg Boyd.
Yep.
I had never heard of Greg Boyd. I'm in Arizona, right? I'm in not Minnesota. Never
Yeah.
heard of Greg Boyd. I've
Yep.
never heard of the open view of God at this point in my 20s. I read this, and Kate, I don't know if you've had like a moment where like you stumble into like an idea that you're
Yeah.
like, I'm never going back. Like,
Right.
this idea completely changes everything. And
Yes.
for me, that was one of those. The open view of God, which I get into in a whole chapter in my book,
Yep.
was one of the ideas that I was like, my gosh, I think I just met Jesus,
Yep.
like, for the first time, even
Yes.
though I knew him, but
Yep.
like now I know him differently. Like,
Yep.
this was a game changer, that God didn't just foreknow everything and we're all just kind of robots playing along to a script, but like
Yep.
Jesus was meeting me in this moment and
Yep.
responding accordingly to what I
Yep.
do. And like, I mean, like, literally God
Mm.
came to life. So
Yes.
then I'm like, who the hell is Greg Boyd? Because this guy is changing my life. So then I discover he's got a book called God of the Possible, which is a full book
I
just
haven't
on the
read
open
that
view of God.
one.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, phenomenal. So that was like, so this Four Views book is my gateway drug. Then I go God of the Possible with Greg,
Yeah.
and I mean, I cannot get enough of this. Like,
Mm.
this theology is beautiful. And here's what I start to think, and this is
Yeah.
not stopped. I start to have this thought. I'm a second generation preacher.
Yep.
I have grown up in the church. I have
Yeah.
been around the church my entire life, and
Yeah.
I didn't know these ideas existed.
Right.
Like, what else I not know?
Mm.
And that has been a journey that I have
Mm.
intentionally launched into of,
Yeah.
I want to be the guy that is learning
Yeah.
things that I don't know.
Yes.
And then I want to be the guy that's sharing those ideas.
Yeah.
So part of this book for me is,
Yep.
I'm writing to the 20-something-year-old
Yes.
version of me
Yep.
that would have loved this
Yes.
book.
Yes.
That would have been like, this is a breath of fresh air. I've never
Yes.
heard these ideas. And that's been what's really cool. A number of people have told me that part 2 of the book, which is the theology,
Yep.
a number of people have told me, "We've never heard these ideas before."
Yes.
And I'm like, "Yes." Like, you got to be exposed to them earlier than you would have been, or, like, earlier than I was, because it took
Right.
me, again, a couple decades of working through this.
Yep.
So, that's how I stumbled into Greg. Then,
Hmm.
and I don't know how long you want the story to go. Then I'm
I love
like,
it.
I'm so fascinated by this guy. I wanna see what a church looks like with this kind of theology, right? Because
Yeah.
I knew my tribe, I didn't know how Greg's.
Yeah.
So, my wife and I mean, seriously, just fly out to Minnesota for a weekend because 'cause I'm
Cool.
like,
Yeah.
"I wanna go see this." So,
Yes.
we end up going to Woodland Hills Church, which is where Greg's
Yes.
been a pastor for many years,
Yeah.
and we meet Paul Eddy. I don't know if you know who Paul Eddy is.
No, I don't.
So Paul is, like a teaching pastor at Woodland Hills, and he has taught at Bethel and, has done a bunch with
Yeah.
Greg. He's been
Yeah.
like one of Greg's right-hand guys for,
Yeah.
like, a lot of years. They do, like, book editing together and stuff. I meet
Cool.
Paul Eddy, I think, like, in the lobby, and,
Yeah.
he's like, "What are you guys doing?" We explain the whole story, like, "I'm a pastor of this church in Arizona. I read this book," all this. And he's like, "Well, do you wanna meet Greg?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I mean, this is because Greg, this is a mega church, so this is not like a tiny little, like,
Right.
this is a mega church.
Yes.
And I'm like, "I could meet Greg?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'll take you to our offices, and, like, I'd love to introduce you." And,
Yeah.
I mean, I was not expecting this, had not,
I love that.
put that on my bingo card. So I
Yeah.
go back with Paul, so forever be grateful for Paul. Brings me back, Michelle and I go back,
Mm.
and we meet Greg. In between services, Greg is just, he's a wild ride. He's taken his shoes off, so he's got his socks up on the desk.
Yeah.
So, like, right where Michelle sits is, like, right next to Greg's socks. He's got his, like, feet
It's
up.
awesome. Yeah.
And I'm like, this guy is not like any theologian I've ever met. I mean, like, when you think about, like, a theologian, you might
Hmm.
have something that comes to mind. Greg
Yeah.
is nothing of that, you know? So you're like, how is this the guy that is literally rocking my mind right now of these theologies?
Yeah.
And so we get in, and I just am, like, thanking
Hmm.
him, like, "Dude, this
Yes.
book
Yeah.
is, like, brought me to life. I
Right.
mean, just thank you so much." And
Yep.
he says to me, "We need more younger people
Mm.
to be exposed to these ideas and
Mhm.
champion them to
Yes.
keep them going."
Yes.
He's like, "I'm getting older," and he's like, "I'm so happy that we have
Mm.
another because he's my parents' generation.
Yep.
So I'm happy we have another generation of people." Well, Kate, I don't know if it was the Holy Spirit or the audacity of someone in their late 20s, but I said this to him. I said, "Greg, if you ever want a younger preacher that can come in and preach these ideas for you on a weekend, I will come out and preach for you for free." I don't know why I said that. That
Yeah.
sounds so self-aggrandizing. Like, how would you pitch yourself to, the guy that's, like, just blown your world, and, like, I
I
I
love it.
offer to preach for him? Like, I don't know
Yeah.
why. I don't know why I did that.
Yeah.
But he kinda laughs like, "Oh, okay, ha, 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 like, I
Yeah.
don't know who you are at all." And we walk away, and I'm like, "I can't believe I said that to Greg. I must have been nervous." Like, I don't know why I said that.
Right.
Like, that
Yeah.
was wild. About 2 weeks later, I get an email from Greg. I don't have
Yes.
Greg's email, but I get
Yes.
an email from Greg.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, dude, I looked you up, and I watched some of your stuff." And he's like,
Sweet.
"Dude, you can preach. I'm
Yes.
gonna take you up on your offer." So he flies me out. They did not pay me. And he jokes. He always says, like, he's like, "Yeah," he's like, "I remember you being a good preacher, but I also remember you saying free, and that was the
Yeah.
thing that stuck with me." So maybe that was
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
go out and I preach, and I just fall in love with their
Mm.
church. I start to meet all these just beautiful people who, again,
Yeah.
believe things differently than me. And I
Yeah.
ended up preaching a number of times in
That's
the
so
years that
cool.
followed. They did pay me the other times.
Yeah.
But it became this beautiful, friendship, and I just said,
Yes.
"Hey, dude, if you'd be willing to, like, mentor me at any whatever
Mm.
that would mean for you," and he
Yeah.
was like, "Absolutely." And so the joke I say about Greg is he saved me at least 10 years of my life, because I think I would have arrived at these ideas. It
Yeah.
just probably would have taken me a decade of,
Yep.
like, trying to find them,
Yes.
because, as you know, when you
Yep.
can talk to someone that can, like, make it make sense to you, that you're like, so, like,
Yes.
you can read about it, and that's great,
Yep.
but then you also need to have, like, "Okay, I'm stuck on this part of it. How do
Yep.
I," and then you have this conversation, you're like, "Oh, that's what it is."
Yep.
So Greg, I mean, we just, like, overhauled my theology for the next 10 years, and it was beautiful, and
Mm.
that's what ultimately set me up.
Mm,
to be, fine with Jesus when all of this went down.
mm,
When I was writing this, I'm like, I got to have Greg write the forward. And
mm.
I tell a story. When it all went down, I
Yeah,
called Greg and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna publish the elders' ultimatum to me on my blog,
yeah,
and I'm gonna let the world know, like,
yeah,
this is what they're telling me."
yeah,
Because I thought our church will turn on them and
right,
basically say, like, "We don't support this. We support what Jeremy's doing. We don't agree to
right.
this."
Yeah,
And Greg's like, "Absolutely, do not think you should do this."
yeah,
And
yeah, that struck me
I was like,
in the book.
"I want to do this." And he's
Yeah.
like, "I know."
What are you
And he's
saying?
like,
Why
"Yeah."
would I not do this? Yeah.
And I was like, "Greg, if I don't do this, like, they win. Like,
Mm,
I have no way to this is my only way to make this work."
yeah.
And he just said, "Jeremy, I strongly believe you need to not defend yourself in
Mm,
this moment."
mm,
And because of my respect for him and the
yeah,
relationship that we had,
yeah,
I listened. And I was like, "All
yeah,
right, I'm so glad I listened."
yeah,
It was the absolute last thing I wanted to do because what I feared would
yeah,
happen is
yeah,
absolutely what happened. No one knew what was really said to me. They just knew the version that got told
yeah,
publicly, and I
yeah.
lost. I lost my job, I
Mm,
lost my friends, I lost, their narrative is the narrative that stuck. And I had to just sit in that. And
hmm.
so I make a joke in the book. I have 2 jokes that I'm most proud of in the book. One of them is I explain the ultimatum letter, and then I say, "And if you'd like to read a copy of the letter yourself, you can find it in the appendix of the book." And then the very next
I
line I
actually
say,
got excited.
yeah, the very next line says, "Just kidding," right? Because it's like,
Yeah, right.
I'm still not gonna publish that. Like, I still
Yes,
want to, but
yes,
it's still not. But that's the point. Like,
yes.
I can tell my story without having to try to make them the villain, And I think
Yep,
that's what it is released of like, yeah, I think what they said to me is absurd, but that's not the point. Like the point
right.
is, letting God, show up in the midst of it. So,
Yes.
gosh, that was a
Yeah,
long
I was gonna
answer to your
ask you what
question.
I love it, I love every minute of it. I was gonna ask you what you think, like, the nugget of wisdom was there that he
Uh,
shared with you, but you said, like, not making them.
so I brought this up. We did
Yeah,
for our launch team, we did a Q&A video with Greg, and I brought this
yeah,
story up to him.
yeah,
And I said, "Do you remember this, as clear as I do?"
yeah,
And he said, "Yeah." And he goes, he's like, "Jeremy, think about what would have happened if you would have published that." And he's like, "You
mhm,
would have gone to war with them." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You
mm,
would have dragged that entire church through a battle
mm,
between the lead pastor and the elder board, and
yeah,
now there's documents that
yes,
everybody is picking sides." And
yep,
he's like, "It would have been one of the ugliest things you ever were a part of." And he goes,
yes,
"Instead," he goes, "you got to feel what it felt like to be Jesus for a moment, right? Where
mm,
you got to just lose." And
mm,
and he goes, "And I believe that was what
wow,
was ultimately what would have been best for you." And
wow,
I don't disagree.
yeah,
It's just when you're in that moment,
yeah,
everything is telling you self-preservation, right?
right,
Like fight back,
right,
use your voice, take them down.
right,
And in that moment, it was like, no, I'm going to let them win
yes,
and I'm going to lose. And yet, in that losing,
yeah,
I met Jesus in a profound way
mm,
that I had never experienced Jesus up to that point. And I don't want to like blow past this, like, yeah, and then, read my book, Happy Ever After. It was like debilitating. I'll just be real.
yeah,
I have this vivid memory. I was gonna say I'm not a crier, although that is less and less true of me the older I get.
mhm,
I didn't used to be a crier, I think is a more
yeah,
accurate statement. There was like this day where I turned in my resignation, and I remember I'm sitting at the dining room table, or kitchen table. The kids were gone, and it was just Michelle and I. We're in Oregon, and I remember, it was like my body finally caught up to everything that happened,
wow,
and I lost it.
wow,
Like, I started weeping
yeah,
uncontrollably where I was shaking
yeah,
and, like, almost like a violent cry
right,
of, like, my body's, like, purging.
yeah,
And I remember I had to, like, lay my head down on the table because I
yeah,
couldn't stop shaking.
right,
And I just remember Michelle just sitting next to me with her hand on me,
mm,
just like,
mm,
there's nothing she can say, but it's like everything of this,
yes,
like, my dreams are dying in me right
Right.
now.
Right.
My belief in God right now is dying. My belief
Yeah.
in the church, like
Right.
all of it was just like literally dying.
Yeah.
And I had that moment that was like the most aggressive cry I have had in my life.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, if you want to do this, if you want to follow my footsteps, get ready for that because like that's what it had to entail for me.
Yes, yes. Oh, that's stunning. And that brings me to something that I feel like I want to get into the theology a little more, but I do want to say, like, your book, not to make this about me and self centered and self focused, but like reminded me of that time. Like you mentioned towards the end of the book, like you never forget where you were when the foundation of your faith or your like understanding of God just fell out from under you. And I too, I was working in kids ministry and I can see it clearly teaching preschoolers the story of Abraham and Isaac.
Oof.
Um,
It's a tough one to
right?
teach kids.
And I felt like like, not to be morbid, but, like, death entered the room. You know, like, you could just feel it. I'm like, "Something is not right about the way that I'm teaching this story right now." Looking into their sweet faces, what I'm telling them, that this story is somehow a foreshadowing of Jesus to come, like, I'm like, "This." I could feel my true self, felt like everything was fighting within me, and that led to, years of research and understanding theology and dark night of the soul, depression, the whole thing. A couple things, and then I'll stop going on and on. But your book, like you said, you would have loved to have had some of this information going through that time. And I just like felt like it was like a revisiting of that time for me. And I just had this moment. I just started crying in the car the other day, like wanting to thank the me at 33 that felt the bottom fall through and kept going and kept researching and gripping my Greg Boyd book. For me, it was Cross Vision. And then he also wrote the foreword to a book that a woman, Jessica Kelly, wrote. It's called Lord Willing. And it was her trying to grasp God's presence, like where God was in the diagnosis of her child that ended up tragically dying from cancer. Because for me, a huge part of my faith crumbling was having my babies, loving them so much, and like, how could a loving God let children die? Like I just couldn't wrap my head around that. And that's what open theism helped me through.
Hmm.
So somehow this book just felt like I was reading it, felt like I was also thanking, like I said, myself that pushed through and was like with grit and like, I am not stopping until I feel like, for me, it was I just wanted to see God face to face. So, thank you for letting me go on and on there, but I just had this moment of, like, and for anybody that's in that in between, and I just knock on wood, hopefully I don't have another dark night anytime soon, but, like, I feel like there is another you can get to the other side of it, and you talk about, like, a faith with harmony where we hold paradox, in our hands and have more silence than questions and, anywho.
Can I just say how much
Yeah.
I love your story? Because here's what so many people do in that moment. They feel that dissonance where they're like, something feels off here,
Yeah.
and they silence that voice
Yeah.
and they push through it and they go,
Yeah.
nope,
Yeah.
or which is sadder, they'll ask someone, hey, I
Mm.
felt something was off. And
Mm.
if you ask a person in the center,
Yes.
just ignore that. It's
Yes.
just a confusing story. Don't worry
Right.
about.
Right.
Instead, I
Yes.
love that you sat in that and were true to that, love like that dissonance. And I would say like that is such a beautiful manifestation of the Holy Spirit literally coming out of you of like, hey, this theology isn't it.
Yeah.
And this moment, and I love
Yeah.
that you say these cute little faces look like I can just it's so picture, like, and then he was about to kill, you're just like looking into their eyes like, what kind of a monster?
Yes. And that's my favorite Bible story now, which is weird.
Really?
Yes, it is.
Wow. How
Because
okay, I'm
yes.
intrigued. How has that can become your favorite? Because I still
Yes,
don't love it.
because it taught me how God helps us rid ourselves of our projections of God. How it was like Boyd talks about how sacrifice was so common at that time. And Abraham was like, it was more of him like listening to the voices of this time, this fear of who he thought God might be, like, okay, I guess I'm gonna sacrifice my kid. And it was really this like beautiful redemption of this clearing of this projection that Abraham had of God, ridding him of his fear. And I still don't understand like the full thing, but I love the idea of God clearing us from our fears of who we think God might be.
That's great.
So I love that. Okay, I also love the section of your book that like goes through omnipotence. Was trying to practice this earlier and remember them.
The other one,
Omniscience, yeah, impassibility, and I don't even know how to say it. Incorporeality? I don't even know how to say it.
incorporeality.
Incorporeality?
Yeah, fun
You have
words.
to read the book. We won't go through all of them, but
They're
I
very
would.
Greek words.
Okay, yeah. But I would love to hear from you about omnipotence specifically. How can the way that we typically understand God being all powerful, how can that mess up our clear understanding of God? And how would you like to reframe it?
Okay, love this question, and I'm gonna go back to you
Yeah.
teaching the kids
Okay.
about Abraham. Because here's what I think we do, and this is like my aside for any listener today.
Yeah.
Whenever you're like thinking theology,
Yeah.
always make it make sense relationally as
Yeah.
well.
Mm.
Because the problem is we make a lot of
Yes.
our theology or abstract ideas that
Yes.
we're like,
Yes.
on paper, this
Right.
makes sense about God. Yes.
Yes.
Until you get into a moment where you're like staring at someone's face and you're like,
Oh, that's
"Mm,
so important
I
and
don't
good.
think this
Yes.
works." So
Right.
for me, I always go, okay, if I were to apply this in relational terms,
Yep.
does it still make sense? And if the
Yes.
answer is no, it doesn't, then
Wow.
I go, something's off. So
Wow.
let me answer your great question in relational terms. Okay. So I've
Yes.
got 5 kids, as I said.
Yes.
Let's
Oh,
set up a heartbreaking scenario with my own children. I'll use my own kids so that it's not morbid to anybody else.
yeah.
If I'm a dad
Yeah.
who is watching my kids, let's say in a swimming pool, okay, and
Yeah.
all 5 of my kids are swimming, and something happens in the water, something gets crazy, a storm, whatever,
Yeah.
and all of my kids need help at the same
Yes.
time, and
Yes.
and if I don't help them, they're going to drown. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the setup.
Yeah.
Now imagine in scenario one, I can save all of my kids. I
Mm.
have the ability to do it. I have the time to do it. That I can save all of them. So jumping in, getting
Yeah.
my kids out. One
Yeah.
kid,
Yep.
two kid, three kid. I get 3 of them out, and then I stop, and 2 of my kids drown.
Hmm.
Is there anyone that
Hmm.
you know that would
Hmm.
look at that scenario and
Hmm.
say, he's still a good dad. He saved 3 of his kids?
Hmm.
No, you would say, why did you let 2 of your kids
Hmm.
drown if it was in your power
Right.
to save them? What kind of a monster parent would allow that? I mean, so
Right.
like again, now where people critique this, they're like, well, you're trying to think of God in human terms. It's like, no,
Right.
no. I'm trying to think of God with the imagination, the logic God gave me. And if it can't make sense here, it sure is not going to go beyond this, right? So now I go, okay, so in that scenario, you would say that dad, me, whoever, is a monster to allow 2 of your kids to drown when you could have saved them.
Yes.
Okay, so now let's change the scenario.
Yeah.
So same setup.
Yeah.
5 of my kids are swimming. Some is going bad. I start jumping in, but I can't save all 5 of them. Like I don't have the time to do it. Like the first 3 is the only 3 I can save. The other 2 drown because by the time I get back into the water, it's too late.
Yeah.
Do you look at me as a father differently, even though the outcome is exactly the same?
Mm.
And the answer is yes.
Mhm.
You would say, this is an amazing dad. And now
Mm.
your heart breaks with my heart
Yeah.
because you know that I wasn't able to do what I would have wanted to do.
Yes.
Right. So the outcome is in both scenarios is exactly the same. 3 of the kids live, 2 die.
Yeah.
But the way we understand what the dad was doing
Yeah.
completely reframes
Right.
how we view that. Why
Yes.
is that a problem?
Yeah.
Because we live in a world
Yeah.
where we can have 2 kids that get cancer, which let's
Yeah.
start there. How do kids get cancer in a world like this, right? But we get lost in the weeds there.
Yep.
So let's just take, we have 2 kids that get cancer and we're going to pray for these 2 kids. And this is, if you're in a church, this would not be uncommon that you would have families in your church that you would know about and you would pray. And now imagine, as many people have not had to imagine, they've seen,
Yeah.
one of the kids gets healed, and
Yeah.
one of the kids dies.
Yes.
And then we say, sorry that God chose to save, Billy, but
Right.
didn't save Timmy.
Right.
And you're like, what? Like, so God could save them both, but didn't save them both? And here, Thomas J. Ord is really a pioneer in this theology, if
Yeah.
anyone's interested.
Yeah.
He's the one that really helped me think through this idea in particular of
Yeah.
the view that we have of God just willy-nilly saving some is
Yep.
pretty monstrous. Now,
Yes.
the pushback I get, because people cannot handle this of like, no, God's still good. The pushback is, well, you don't know what God knows. Maybe, I've literally heard this. Maybe God was saving them from something worse that they were going to experience later. Or maybe
Mhm.
that kid was going to grow up to be the next Hitler, and so God was saving the world from them.
Right.
Which I just want to say, okay, like, if that helps you make sense of it, great. Like, run with it.
Okay. Yeah.
To me,
Yes.
doesn't work. Like,
Right.
I'm not good with that view of God. It's like it seems very manipulative,
Yes.
very much puppet master pulling the strings. Here's what I believe. I
Yes.
believe God is always working for the good
Yes.
of everyone
Yes.
because God is fundamentally goodness itself. God is
Yes.
love and goodness, which
Yes.
means to all of God's power in every single instance God is
Yes.
working for the good in your life, in my
Yes.
life, in
Yes.
all of humanity's life.
Yes.
So then you say, well, Jeremy, if that's true, how does so much go wrong? How does,
Yep.
and that's where I would say that's where we develop a different view. So I argue Thomas J. Ord's view is
Yeah.
called omnipotence. And
Yes. I love
if
that.
you only hear this, it's hard to understand the difference. It's spelled differently,
Yeah.
AMI
Yep.
instead of omni in front of it.
Yep.
And that is basically, rather than looking at God's power of God can do whatever he wants, it's
Yes.
God's power shaped through love. Because
Yes.
that's the Jesus we see. That's a God that looks like Jesus is not this wild use of power at all
Yes.
cost. It is power through the lens of love. So to me, the only thing that makes sense is that I don't
Mm.
think God is omnipotent in the
Yeah.
traditional sense where God can snap, God's fingers and you're healed, not healed, whatever, because
Yep.
that to me just doesn't look like Jesus.
Yes.
But I do think there are things that prohibit God from doing what God would want to do because
Mm.
of God being love. And I
Mm.
think free will comes into play here.
Yep.
I think, the way that God has made creation autonomous apart from God in certain ways. And so
Mm.
to me, it doesn't necessarily resolve every tension, but
Yep.
it allows me to deal with the tensions that we see and
Yes.
also remain with a God that looks like Jesus. And
Yes.
so to me, I tell people like, hey, the omnipotent thing breaks down pretty quick
Yeah.
when you start to go, why is God not doing more?
Yes.
And if that doesn't bother you, you have much lower expectations of God than I
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
because I'm not good with that kind of a God.
Yes. And ultimately, ironically, with the omnipotence way, it feels like God is that much more powerful.
I think so. And it's a
Yeah.
God that created in such a way that it's the father who's like, I wish I could have saved you. I
Yeah.
couldn't save you in this situation.
Yes.
And so I'm going to grieve with you. I'm going to
Yes.
be there. It's like,
Yeah.
which is Jesus. I mean, literally,
Yes.
it's like this is what we
Yes.
see in Jesus.
Yes.
And there were villages where Jesus would go to, and the scriptures tell us, and he could not
Yes.
do miracles there
Mm.
because of their lack of faith. Like that's literally in the text that there was times Jesus couldn't do things, and yet we're like, no, 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 God's omnipotent though. And it's like, I don't think God is in this Greek understanding that we
Right.
have.
Yes.
I think God is all powerful through
Yes.
love. And
Yes.
love has limitations. And love can
Mm.
always be hurt. That is like a key part of love. And we wish we could, every marriage wishes you could have the perfect marriage with no risk of infidelity, right?
Yeah.
But you can't. There's always a risk. There's always
Yes.
that's the tension that love requires.
Yeah.
And I think we see it with God too, with
Yeah.
God's creation.
Yeah. How do you make sense of the cross? So this sounds awful and I only say it in a certain company, but the verse, John 3:16, God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son. There so many times in my life have been like, well, who does that make out make God out to be if the only solution was to sacrifice his child? Like, do I want to be God's child if this was his solution?
Right? This
Like,
dad seems
I'm
kind of
scared.
messed up.
How do you make sense of that, and why? What is the power of the cross to you?
Kate, I am loving
Just
these questions.
casual, just casual.
Oh, this is like
Thank
my
you
favorite
for
stuff to talk about because it's where our big ideas about God meet real life, right?
yes,
And this is what we're
right,
talking about.
right. Yeah.
So I was raised with the traditional penal substitutionary atonement view, which
Mhm.
is the official way you describe the idea that God the Father is angry, needs a sacrifice, so he
Yes.
kills Jesus to
Yes.
appease the wrath of God, and then the wrath is appeased, God is good, long live, all of
Yes.
us, right?
Right.
Which you go, what? Again, put that in relational terms, and it immediately falls apart of like, this God is a monster. Like, I
Right.
don't. Now, here's
Is it
okay. So
not the
here's
same as just regular sacrifice? Like, how is it different? Yeah.
so here's what I would say.
Yeah.
Start with observation number one that I would encourage anyone who studies the text of the scriptures is going to find. There is no universal voice on making sense of atonement. And atonement is how are we at one with God, right? So
Okay.
how
Yeah.
did Jesus' death make us at peace with God? The
Yes.
scriptures do not agree on how to
Hmm.
explain this.
Mhm.
The gospels don't agree on how to explain
Hmm.
this. I just did a sermon recently where I talked about how Luke is using Mark's gospel for
Yeah.
most of what he does,
Yeah.
but Luke omits all of the atonement language that Mark uses. And he
Interesting.
and he
I
omits it
did
in
not
the
know
book of
that.
Acts,
Yeah.
which Luke writes as well. So
Yeah.
Luke seems to focus way more on Jesus is innocent and you killed him and you need to repent because you killed an innocent guy.
Yeah.
That's the way Luke presents it. That is not the way Mark presents it. Mark is much more the traditional Jesus died for us. Okay,
Yep.
well, what do we mean by that? So I think at a minimum, you've got to acknowledge there is no easy answer to this because you
Hmm.
see different views in the scriptures. So
I love that.
I set that up to say I have two answers that I hold together. And you might go, how can you hold two instead of one?
Yeah.
Well, if the scriptures can have multiple views, I can also have multiple views on this. So I hold multiple views. So the two views that I have found, again, because to me, good theology is theology that looks like Jesus.
Yes.
So
Yep.
when I think about what is my atonement theology, it's what theology looks like Jesus to me.
Yes.
There are
Yes.
two that
Yep.
I am very comfortable with.
Yes.
One is called the Christus Victor view of
Yep.
atonement. I
Yep.
learned about this through Greg Boyd, which is that we are in a battle and there is a price to be paid, but the price to be paid is not to the Father. The price to be
Hmm.
paid is to Satan. And you
Yes.
find a bunch of this language in the New
Yeah.
Testament that there's a debt that humanity has incurred, that
Okay.
Satan has a claim now, that
Yep.
creation has this rift. And now he's like,
Yeah.
look, they fell from you. You don't own them anymore. They belong to me. And
Hmm.
to reconcile this, God's like, I will buy them back, kind of a ransom
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
against Satan to
Yeah.
buy us back.
Yeah.
So God pays the cost of something that he already has or already had.
Yeah.
And again, I go, I can get on board with that view.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, I
Yeah.
struggle a little bit of like, it feels like we're giving Satan a
I'm curious
little
about
too
your
much
views on
credit.
Satan and demons
Yeah.
and things, but we
Well, it
can
feels
skip
like
that for
this
now.
view gets a little too much support of that. But there's a lot of language in the New Testament about this. The
Yeah.
second view that I also hold together that I think is also helpful is the
Yeah.
mimetic view of atonement. And Rene Girard was the one that came up with the mimetic theory of atonement. And I think this is fascinating. It's longer to explain. The short version would be this. We often need a scapegoat
Yeah.
to resolve conflict within community. And you see
Hmm.
this all throughout history. He was
Hmm.
a professor of literature, and he noticed
Yeah.
all the stories had this idea of a scapegoat in them that, hey,
Interesting.
we got to blame someone. Well, look around our news right now and you see scapegoating on every local news station. Who are we going to blame for what's going on?
Right.
We always
Right.
have to blame someone.
Yeah.
Well, what he noticed is that cultures and societies
Yeah.
tend to blame a minority or pick someone vulnerable in order to make the system continue to run.
Mm-hmm.
So what he noticed is that this is how society worked. Well, then he started applying it to religions, And he realized that religions do this.
Yeah.
Religions tell you who to scapegoat in
Yeah.
order to be right with God.
Yeah.
But then he got to Christianity. He started
Hmm.
out as an atheist. He got to
Hmm.
Christianity and he realized that the Christian view of God was different in this
Hmm.
regard.
Hmm.
That the Christian view, and he compared it to myths, where you have these myths of the world religions that are all told from the point of view of the scapegoater, the one
Hmm.
who is choosing who to scapegoat.
Huh.
Then he gets to the Christian scriptures
Yeah.
and he notices that the shift is on the one being scapegoated.
Huh.
And he realizes, oh, there is a reversal happening here. And
Hmm.
then he comes to see what Jesus does on the cross
Yeah.
as the breaking of the scapegoating mechanism. And so
Interesting.
it's the idea of he's the last scapegoat.
Wow.
So Jesus enters into this because
Yes.
we need to blame someone.
Yeah.
And literally there's passages where Caiaphas says, "Isn't it better that one man die than the whole, community suffer?" And
Yeah.
he's literally arguing for the scapegoat even though he doesn't realize what he's arguing. So they
Yeah.
put all the blame on Jesus. Jesus
Hmm.
takes it all, not
Hmm.
because God needed to do it,
Yeah.
because humanity needed someone to blame.
Yeah.
We had to purge someone. And in
Hmm.
doing this, Jesus is like, "Look, I will be the last scapegoat. You
Yeah.
don't have to continue this cycle anymore."
Oh.
So to me,
Yeah.
those two views I hold
Yeah.
together to go, I think both of those help me understand how to make
Yes.
sense of the cross
Yeah.
in a way that looks like Jesus.
Yes. You write somewhere God became weak with us. Something like that. Why would God have to become weak with us?
Because this is love.
Hmm.
Does not love require you to enter into weakness?
Hmm.
Love requires you to enter into vulnerability.
Hmm.
If I didn't want to be hurt, I should have nothing that I love. And,
Hmm.
there have been philosophical schools that this is how they teach it, right?
Yeah.
If you remove all attachments, right?
Yeah.
Because the moment I have something I love or someone I love, I
Hmm.
can be hurt. I'm
Hmm.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
You do something to my kids, you can hurt me. You do something to my wife, you can hurt me. Why? Because I love them.
Hmm.
So Jesus is showing us a God who truly loves us to the
Hmm.
point that God is willing to be hurt. God
Yeah.
is willing to suffer. God is willing to be weak
Hmm.
because that is the essence of love.
Yeah. Why is it worth it to be vulnerable?
Love's the greatest thing there is. I mean, that
Yeah.
all of our stories are pointing us to all the great literature, all the great poems, all the
Yeah.
great songs you've ever everything that's ever stirred you inside.
Yeah.
It's love. There's
Yeah.
something deeper that doesn't resolve everything, doesn't solve your problems, doesn't remove pain, but love is the thing that you would say, like, I would willingly die for my wife in
Mhm.
love, and it would be worth it for me. What else has that kind of power where you could say there's no exchange that you would say how it is giving your life, how no, because for love I would.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing more powerful than love. And I think that's what we see in God is like
Mm.
this love that doesn't fit the boxes we want it to
Yeah.
fit.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, God's power is revealed on the cross. I mean,
Yeah.
Satan literally is thinking like, or however you view this, right? Evil.
Yeah.
Like, God lost. Like, look, we won. Like, this is like we defeated all of goodness, right?
Yeah.
And then literally it's like, oh, it's like this divine like judo move of like, no,
Yeah. Yep.
actually, this loss is the win. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, what on earth just happened here? And it's,
Mm.
whatever image, Chronicles of Narnia, like, the witch
Yep.
is like, yeah, we killed Aslan. And it's like, wait,
Yep.
he's back?
Yep.
Like, and when he's back, is like, what? Like everything, all bets are off. Like, I
Mhm.
thought we won, but like, that's what love is. Like,
Mm.
love something else.
Hmm. Do you feel as though love comes with you when you leave this earth? And what do you think about heaven? How do you view heaven these days?
And I gotta tell you, of all the podcasts I've done for the book, these are unique questions, and I'm loving them.
Okay, good.
Gosh, what a fascinating
My
question. Okay,
husband thanks you because whenever I try to get into these things, he's like, he just kind of like goes blank. So the podcast is really a gift for our
yeah,
marriage
there you
because
go.
it is my like spiritual
It's your
outlet.
outlet. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. That's amazing. Okay, if I'm honest with you, this is not the answer you're probably expecting. Heaven stresses me out.
Oh, yeah.
like, just the logical thought of this goes
Yeah.
on forever, like,
Yeah.
and my wife and I kinda joke, like, "Doesn't
Kinda
this"
long.
yeah, like, "Does this ever stress you out of, like, there's nothing else? It's just this, like, for eternity," right? It's like,
Yeah, I love that.
I don't
Yeah.
know. So, like, I think my imagination can't fully
Mhm.
keep up with that concept.
Mhm.
What I do love is the idea of God making everything right.
Mhm.
I love that image.
Mm.
In fact, I'll give you a Greg Boyd illustration. That this is one of
Mhm.
my. I was explaining this to my daughter the other night. She was asking about this. This is one of my favorite things Greg Boyd's ever told me,
Mm.
and this is my recollection of this in a personal conversation. So this is not like written down somewhere I can verify, but
Yeah.
one of our mentor sessions, he told me this, and I was like, I'm never going to forget this story as long as I
Mm.
live. So Greg is doing something he taught me called cataphatic prayer, which is imaginative
Mm.
prayer.
Yes.
And it's where you envision Jesus
One of my favorite
meeting you in a
things.
scenario or
Oh,
something, right?
yes. Yep.
And so rather than just I'm praying with words, I'm praying with my mind and I'm praying,
Yes.
with my emotions. So he's in
Yes.
one of these
Oh.
moments and he's on this playground. And this is in his imagination in this moment of prayer. He sees all of these kids and they're in Holocaust uniforms. Okay. So it's all these kids in the Holocaust, but they're in the scene, they're playing on the playground and he
Wow.
sees Jesus playing with them.
Wow.
Okay. So he's looking at this scene and he goes up to Jesus and he says, how could you allow this?
Mm.
Like you could stop this and you're allowing all these kids to go to the hall like I'm not okay with this and you're just
Right.
here playing with them. Like
Yes.
how is this okay?
Yes.
Okay, the thing that he said, Jesus
Yeah.
said to him in this moment,
Yeah.
is Jesus looked at him and he said, "Greg, I'm going to make it up to them."
Hmm.
And I don't know what it is about that line, but, like,
Yeah.
like, if I ever had to, like, cry for something, like, I would just think about that line and let my emotions go, and I could cry every time. The idea of Jesus saying, "I'm going to make it up for you
Yes.
for eternity."
Yes.
Like, the wrong that was done to you, the pain that was done to you, the harm that was done to you, I'm going to make it up to you for
Yes.
eternity,
Yes.
is, like, the most beautiful thing, and
Hmm.
C.S. Lewis had this idea, he called it heaven working backward.
Hmm.
Where whatever pain you experienced or
Yes.
injustice you experienced,
Yes.
heaven would reverse it.
Yes.
So, like,
Yes.
if you had a really hard life, heaven would be even sweeter for you.
Hmm.
And I think there's something to that image too
Mhm.
of like, maybe that's what eternity is of like
Yeah.
this great
Hmm.
undoing, this great
Oh.
unraveling of all of
Oh.
the hurts and the pain
Oh.
and then
Wow.
us getting to participate in healing everything and
Wow.
everyone and just, like, would that not be amazing? And
Yes.
I would go so far to say or I might lose some people in this one, but let's go there.
Let's go.
I one of the views I've changed my mind on is I think Jesus is gonna save everybody, okay?
Hmm.
So I did not grow up with this view, did not have this
Yeah.
view, even as a
Yeah.
lead pastor, I
Yeah.
since have come to this view.
Yeah.
People are like, "Yeah, what about Hitler? What about these guys that are monsters?" And I
Mhm.
think there will be a refining process for these
Yes.
people.
Yes.
And call it hell, call it purgatory, call it whatever you wanna call it.
Yeah.
I probably won't be pleasant, but it's
Yeah.
not punitive. I think it
Yeah.
will be for
Hmm.
their good.
Yeah.
So here's the thought, though, and again, this might be
Yeah.
too much for people, but what if in heaven, as we're all healing these wounds and all of this, what if you see some of these monsters of history who did unfathomable evil?
Yeah.
And yet you realize you're not the same version of you
Wow.
that we saw, that something has happened. They've met Jesus. They've had that
Yes. I've
refining
never
process.
thought about that.
And then you get to participate in
Oh,
their healing.
wow.
Would that not be the most fascinating? Like, we're all
Yes.
healing together. And
Yes.
here's this brother of mine who, while he was
Oh,
on earth, wreaked
wow.
destruction and yet has
Wow.
experienced God. And now on this
Right.
side of eternity is being
Yes.
redeemed and
Yes.
restored and
Yes.
rebuilt. And we get to
Yes.
participate.
Oh,
Like,
and we get to participate.
I
That
could do
feels
that
like
for eternity.
momentum to me.
Yes.
That feels like that God forward, like when you're all the story, I mean, that feels biblical. That feels like Jesus to me. Like all the stories of the people that loved Jesus the most were the ones that had like I don't, how would you
Yeah.
phrase
To
that?
whom much was
Yeah.
forgiven, much is
Thank
received, right?
you.
Like,
Yes.
hey, who
Yes.
is more grateful for this?
That's
Like the person who had a ton
stunning.
of sin. That's literally
Wow.
Jesus' teaching. Like, let's
Right.
apply it for eternity and go,
Wow.
what if it was that? And like that, I could get excited about that.
Wow. I am excited about that. That's really I love that so much, and I've never thought about it in that way. And you've said, like, like this the reversal, the great reversal, like how it really never gets old. How many times, like, the story of Jesus, the gospel is always like flipping everything on its head. Which brings me back to your book, The Edge of the Inside. It's not the center with the power, but the edge. And I would love to hear. Okay. So, for someone that is in the midst of the deep questioning or reconstructing, where can they go? How would you encourage them to receive support? And read your book, of course. What can someone do to feel supported through that? And I say that, I feel like as I say it, it almost sounds trite, but like I mean it in the most sincere
Absolutely.
way of like, receiving that, walking someone through that hard time that is really hard.
Here's the best analogy I've heard to explain why your question is such a good question. Imagine a little above ground pool where, you can like move the water around, right?
Yeah.
And imagine that you have like five people and you're all moving the same direction. You can get like little tide pool going,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then you can be carried along by that tide pool if you just lift your feet up, right? Because the momentum's already going. But the moment you plant your feet and you turn,
Hmm.
you have a very different experience
Hmm.
because now you're no longer contributing to the moment, to the
Hmm.
movement. You're no
Yeah.
longer being carried by the movement.
Yeah.
You are now in opposition to the movement. Okay.
Yes.
That is what I
Hmm.
think happens with people in our culture,
Yeah.
where there are a handful of people who are contributing and they're making it the way it is. But
Yeah.
the majority of people, they're just lifting their feet up and they're
Yeah.
they're flowing along with the current. And it's
Yeah.
like it works, it's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
And so the courage you have to have is to plant your feet and turn and say, this
Hmm.
doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah.
But when I heard this, and I can't remember who said this illustration, but when I heard it said, the line he said afterwards, and he goes, and if you do this by yourself, you'll drown.
Hmm.
Because his point was you have to get enough people with you to
Wow.
push the current the other way, otherwise you drown.
Yeah.
And this is what I would tell people. If you try to do this work that we're talking about in this conversation, or the work that my book is talking about and
Yeah.
inviting you to experience, if you do it by yourself, you might drown.
Yeah.
So you have to have people.
Yes.
I would say, at a minimum, the fact that they're listening to your podcast, you are connected to
Hmm.
other
Mhm.
people and to other conversations.
Yep.
Run with that. Like,
Yes.
build on that because you cannot do this alone. I started an online community for people because I realized there were so many people who wanted to figure out, how do we actually live this out in real life? Like, how do
Yeah.
we actually do this? And so I pour myself into extra stuff that I'm doing just for an online group of people,
Hmm.
and we create a safe space for people. So
That's
like,
amazing.
hey, I want to I want to ask a theological question that I cannot ask in my church right now. Where am I going to
Yep.
ask it?
Yep.
Well, we've created a space where it's like you can ask it online and no one's going to judge you and you're going to get a
Yes.
bunch of answers. We do like
Yes.
a monthly video call where
Yes.
it's like, hey, let's check in, and like I get to hear from people across the country
Hmm.
who are living out their faith in such beautiful ways,
Yes.
and every single one of them is like, I feel alone. And I feel
Hmm.
like, I'll give you one
Hmm.
example. Someone a couple months ago was on a call and she
Yeah.
gave me a story that I have not stopped thinking about.
Yeah.
She talks about she lives in, I think, the Bible Belt, and so she's like, I'm in a very conservative place. There are
Yeah.
no churches around me that I would
Yeah.
resonate with. So I
Mhm.
go to this church because it's like who I know and all this, but it's not really meeting me where I'm at. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to find these other things. So she's found our community. She's a part of that. Then she tells her story. And so I said, what changed for you? Like, what was your moment when you kind of realized like I didn't fit? She
Yeah.
tells me this story, Kate, that she was training to be a missionary, had signed up, had done all of it. She's
Yes.
ready to go. And she
Yes.
gets into the formal, like, final stages of preparation to send you out.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and they had some presentation where they told her the stats of all of the people globally who were going to go to hell unless missionaries like them shared the gospel with them.
Mm.
And in this moment, about to be sent as a missionary, she has
Wow.
this thought: what kind of a God would send all these people to hell just because we didn't talk to them? And she goes, "I can't follow that kind of God. Like, that doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense."
Yes.
So she leaves. She
I
backs
understand that.
out of being a missionary, has
Wow.
all of the
The
fallback of that,
courage.
friends
Yeah.
and family and all of that, and is
Right.
like, "I can't do it. I gotta rethink this. This doesn't make sense anymore."
Yeah.
She's the kind of person I think about when I think about
Yes.
this work. And so
Yes.
her only community she has is us online
Wow. Yep.
because she doesn't have anything near her. But
Yeah.
when she joins those calls,
Yeah.
she's getting head nods and like,
Yes.
yes, you're not alone and we get it. And so
Yeah.
that is what I encourage people. You've
Yes.
got to find people who
Yes.
can carry you. And
Yes.
here's what I have learned when you run out of hope,
Yeah.
which will happen
Mm.
in this
Yep.
work,
Yep.
you have to borrow hope from
Yes.
other people. And you can't borrow hope from people you don't know. And so,
Mm.
when I'm feeling discouraged, when I'm on a
Yeah.
day where I'm like, I want to throw in the towel, this is not worth it. I
Yeah.
borrow hope from
Yeah.
the people in my life that I go, but you're showing up and you're doing it well. And you need to develop those relationships
Yes.
of people who you can be safe with.
Yes.
Sadly, many of us, and this is a theme I see all throughout my work, many of us have had to deal with the reality of the people who introduced us to Jesus
Yeah.
no longer recognize the Jesus in us.
Mm.
That
Mm.
is heartbreaking when
Mm.
your family members are no longer there for you, when your
Mm.
parents or,
Mhm.
friends, they're like,
Or they
"Hey,
look
we're."
at you like you're crazy, like you
Yeah,
said before.
yeah, "Where
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
going, I can't go
Yeah.
with you, and this is
Yeah.
you're out of bounds." And you're
Yeah.
like,
Right. You're
"I
out of
can't do
bounds.
anything else. I have to go down this road."
Yes.
So you have to find people on the same road, and there
Yeah.
are. I meet
Yeah.
more and more of them every single week, and so
Hmm.
I would encourage people, like, you're already listening to a podcast that is introducing voices to you, run with that.
Yes.
Build on that. Find your people. Follow the people that Kate interviews. Read the books that are like, find more people
Yes.
so that you don't feel so alone. It's the gaslighting part of this that does people in, where they're like, I'm crazy,
Yep.
something's wrong with me. And it's
Yep.
like, there's not.
You're not.
You're swimming against the current.
Yes. Yes. I love that so much. And it's funny that you said, oh, how did you say it? That they don't recognize Jesus in you
Hmm.
anymore. Like, that actually kind of blows my mind you said that, because it was when I poured out all my fears about God to my a first time meeting with a spiritual director who then I had for 7 years, that what she said to me, "I see Jesus in you," as I was sharing all these things that for whatever reason that like was a light bulb that just helped me keep going.
Yeah.
Just for someone to see it in you, Jesus is with you. Like it just is. It helps so much. Yeah, and you said I wrote, "If your faith can't survive questions." Oh, shoot. It something like it wasn't rooted in Christ, it was rooted in control. I liked that. Okay, a couple more questions and I'll let you go. So you talk about harmony, like I mentioned earlier, but I'm curious, like, what does that feel like for you? What is that experience of having this, like, harmonious faith? How does that feel in your body? What is that like for you?
So the word that comes to mind is a word that I hesitate to use because it's been hijacked by a very specific movement right now. The word is freedom.
Mm.
And not freedom in the Charlie Kirk sense where I see the t-shirts everywhere I live.
Mhm.
Freedom in I'm not bound by these restrictions by the box that I was given.
Yeah.
I grew
Yeah.
up in this box. I'm not bound
Yeah.
by that anymore.
Yeah.
I just get to follow Jesus wherever
Mm.
Jesus wants to go.
Yep.
Wherever the Spirit wants to show up,
Yes.
however the Spirit wants to show up, which
Yes.
means I can change my mind.
Yes.
I can acknowledge when I don't know something.
Yeah.
I can embrace mystery.
Yes.
And I can use my voice fully
Mm. Mm.
without
Yeah.
needing
Wow.
the person who's
Wow.
listening to me to validate it.
Wow.
So,
That's a
I think
practice.
for a lot of people, we learn pretty quickly. If I tell you what I really think, you won't like me or you'll judge
Mhm.
me or you won't
Mhm.
include me or.
Hmm.
So we don't say
Mhm.
those things. I have entered into a season where I've lost what I'm going to lose, and now it's like
Wow.
I say things way more free. And
Wow.
I'll give you a little behind the scenes that
Yeah.
this isn't obvious, but a lot of people from my former life have a lot of issues with things that I say, or hey, you're making this look bad, or da da da.
Yeah.
And my wife always says they're bothered by the freedom that you have. Like
Hmm.
they can't stand that you're free
Hmm.
to go
Hmm.
be this version of you, and God is using that version, and they don't like that.
Wow.
And other
Yeah.
people are experiencing that version, and they're finding life. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I get people coming out of the
Wow.
woodwork of
Wow.
like, people I used to work with or whatever,
Yeah.
like trying to reprimand me of like, you have a responsibility to tell people the right things. And it's like, look, you can experience Jesus the way you want to experience him, but
Yeah.
like I'm not going to be bound by your understanding of Jesus. I'm going to go
Hmm.
experience the fullness of Jesus that I've
Hmm.
experienced. And
Yes.
if that is out of bounds to you, I'm
Yes.
sorry, but like
Yeah.
I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And it's just a freedom. And that
Hmm.
freedom is what I'd want for everybody to say,
Yes.
freedom to be you.
Wow.
And here's what I've learned. Freedom isn't the ability to say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Freedom's the ability to say what you want, regardless of what it's going to cost you. That's
Hmm.
freedom. Because it always
Yeah.
costs you something. It's not like I can go
Yeah.
say whatever I want. It's like, no. But the freedom I have is I can say what I want to say and I
Yeah.
can pay the price that I'm going to
Yeah.
pay. And I go,
Yeah.
yeah, that's freedom.
Yes. So where do you see the future of Christianity?
I think I talk about in part 3 of the book, I think there's 2 camps you can look at, and they're
Yeah.
called different things. I call them the institutional church, which is kinda church as we know it,
Yeah.
and then the deconstruction community, which,
Yeah.
again, gets called lots of different things.
Yeah.
I think the institutional church will continue to lose momentum
Yeah.
and lose numbers of people. I think the deconstruction community will gain momentum, gain numbers of people. I think they will come to a point where it'll be maybe not 50-50, but more like peers, where
Yeah.
these are 2 different expressions.
Yeah.
And then I think we'll have a choice to make. My
Hmm.
prayer and what I write about in part 3 is that we
Yeah.
would lean in together and we
Yeah.
would bring the best of both of these expressions of Christianity,
Hmm. That's
and
my prayer too.
we would allow that to keep us from the weaknesses of both models.
Wow.
So either we do that and a
Yes.
really beautiful version of the
Yes.
church emerges in
Yes.
that,
Yes.
or we decide to schism even harder
Wow.
and we draw, really funky lines and we don't talk, and there's even more branches of Christianity in the future, which history would indicate we're capable of that as well. But
Hmm.
I think this Christendom model
Hmm.
of
I love
Christian
that.
nationalism will break it. It'll get it to a breaking point, and I think once that breaks, the institutional model is not gonna have the same kind of power and levers that it used to have,
Mhm.
and that's when I hope that side of the aisle leans in and we build something new together.
Hmm. I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'd love to close with some rapid fire questions if we
Let's
can
do
do
it.
that.
Yeah.
Before I do, I just want to say I thought a number of times as through our conversation, if like I would, how do I say this? I would love to go to your church. Like if you if you had a church and we was in our community, I would go and I would trust my family with your theology and the way you
Mm,
teach God.
thank you.
Um, yeah. Um, like a few things you said, I'm like, I want my kids to hear this, which that's a big deal for me.
By the
Okay,
way, my
so
17-year-old
yeah,
has almost read the entire book.
that's special.
And not because I
That's
made him,
sweet.
but he's at the age where, these ideas are interesting to him. And I had
Wow.
this beautiful moment, Kate, where he's, like, wrestling with all these ideas and, we have these late night conversations that are amazing. And I'm literally thinking, "Dude, I was in, like, my thesis probably
Yeah.
before these ideas made sense to me.
Yeah.
You're 17,
Yeah.
and not only are you exposed to these ideas, but
Yes.
you're wrapping your head around them."
Yeah.
And I was like, "I'm so excited for how God's gonna
Yes.
use
Yep.
that in your life." And so
Yes.
that's, like,
Yeah.
I mean, not that it's not a kid's book. It's not like it's an easy read for kids, but, like, yeah, these are ideas that, like, I want everyone to be aware, like, there's
Yes.
not one way to view God. There's a variety of ways. So, like,
Yes.
let's give kids all of it and let them make sense of God on their own journey.
Yeah. I do feel like there's like something special with that generation and their curiosity and openness to God. Like teenagers now, I'm like, oh, I was not going to Bible study. I don't
Well, it's
that's a whole
always
other
something
tangent.
new, it's like you just get used to, like, this is the way it is, and then you're like, "Oh, no, something new is gonna emerge with them," and
Yeah.
it'll be
Right.
cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Okay, cool. So, rapid fire. Feel free to take your time or as little amount of time as you want with these. So, okay. When or how do you remember the presence of God from within your body?
I think about 2 stories.
Yeah.
One was in the season leading up to when I started sensing things were getting tense as a lead
Yeah.
pastor. I went to the Oregon coast and by myself for a couple nights and just was on the coast, and I did a cataphatic prayer moment.
Hmm.
one of the evenings. So I'm imagining a conversation with Jesus and we're sitting on the beach that literally I was in a beach house. So it's like it would have just been, a stone's throw from where I was sitting. So I could picture it very vividly.
Yeah.
And I was very stressed out in this season. And I remember telling all of my things to Jesus as he's sitting next to me on the beach. And I'm just like unloading. I got this and this and this, and this isn't, what.
Yeah.
And Jesus starts laughing. And it made me mad because I was like, that's not the right response when someone tells you how stressed they are.
Yeah.
And he just starts laughing. And wasn't a like a bad natured laugh, but he's
Yeah.
laughing.
Yeah.
And it really bothered me in
Yeah.
this moment where I'm like, is that the reaction I'm seeing? And then he put his arm around me
Mm.
and he said, I've got you.
Mm.
I've got you.
Mm.
And I felt a physical release in this prayer moment of like,
Wow.
oh, and it was almost as if God literally put his physical arm around me.
Wow.
And when someone offers you touch that you
Wow.
desperately need and you can
Yeah.
feel like the
Wow.
chemicals in your body changing with that touch.
Yeah. Oh.
That's like what it was, but no one
Oh.
touched me. It
Oh.
was like that moment
Oh.
where Jesus puts his arm around me and it was like, oh.
Oh. So cool.
So think about that one. One other quick one that I always think about.
Yeah.
I was meditating with Buddhists one time.
Mhm.
True story. And I was like, I want to see what this is like. And so I go
Yes.
this whole, it's probably, I don't know, 20 some people in this room
Yeah.
meditating for like an
Yes.
hour. And we have
Yes.
this, Buddhist monk that's leading us to this whole thing. And the
Yeah.
whole point was like, rid your mind of everything, everything, everything.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I never tried it the way that the Buddhists were getting me to try it. So I
Yeah.
get to the point where I
That sounds
did
so
it.
fun.
Like 40 minutes in, okay? I'm like,
Wow. Cool.
I think I had this like awareness. Like I
Yeah.
think I did it. I'm not thinking about anything.
Yeah.
Then I have this thought. Now what? Because I was like, the monk never told us what to do once you get here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I sat there and I had this like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And I literally, it was like Jesus popped in and was like, hey. And I was like, hey. And it was like, I didn't think to find you here. Like, I don't know. I wasn't expecting you. And again, it was like the most beautiful Jesus, like, yeah,
Oh.
you cleaned all this up
Yes.
and here I am. Like, I'm
Yes.
here. And it was
Yes.
like after everything's removed, it's a reminder
Oh.
Jesus has always been there. And like that did something to me, like physically. Like, I
Oh.
don't know. Like that was
Wow.
that was like a tangible. And I remember feeling like it was as much
Wow.
of like the Matrix moment, when he like first when he realizes like, whoa, I can do all this. It was kind of
Yes.
like I can see things that I couldn't see before. Like it felt like
Yes.
I just
Right.
like had
Yes.
like an awareness
Yes.
unlocked.
I
And
totally
so
hear
I
you.
that was a trippy experience.
That's so, so cool. And I love, okay, so my next question is typically, then how do you remember Jesus from within your physical body? Like, same, different. And I think that speaks to you and how you view God and how you immediately went to sharing Jesus with God. I love that. I love that you did that. Is there anything else, like, is there anything else you want to speak on about, like, how Jesus shows up for you versus God, or is it always through Jesus? Does that make sense?
I think when I was younger, it was through God because I felt like you're supposed to go through,
Huh?
if you went through God the Father, it was the right way.
Huh?
So here's like in real time,
Yeah.
which I've shared this with our community.
Yeah.
I'm rethinking some of my theology on like the Trinity
Huh?
because I don't know, the fact that the Trinity didn't exist as a concept when any of the writers of the New Testament were writing, I
Yeah.
find that intellectually problematic.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to like let the scriptures speak of like,
Yeah.
okay, what are they really trying to show us? And I
Yeah.
think, it's a little bit messier. So I like lean in the mystery of like, not necessarily like God in three perfect forms. It's like, no, Jesus is what God looks like. So it's almost like this God on display is what
Mhm.
is what Jesus is. And so
Mm.
it's like this manifestation of God.
Mm.
So I don't need to go to any other aspect of like I just
Mhm.
stare literally at Jesus' face. Like that's
Mm.
what God looks like.
I
And
love
and even
that.
like I teach through the book of John every weekend. I do 10 minutes or less. And I'm noticing as I'm going through this how
Yeah.
much Jesus separates himself from the Father.
Huh. Yeah.
I'm just doing what the Father has
Yeah.
sent me, and God
Yeah.
and the Father, like, He's greater than I am. And I'm like,
Yeah.
so much of this language breaks down this idea that we have of the Trinity, and
Yeah.
yet when you just assume it's like that's a non-starter, that you don't entertain it. But now I'm like,
Yeah.
I think it's like more mysterious than this. Of like,
Yeah.
Jesus is like, look, I'm not the Father.
Yeah.
I'm revealing the Father. Like,
Mm.
I don't know. And so even
Mm.
in that, there's something that I'm like, all right, Jesus,
Yeah.
I'm on board. Show me. Like,
Yes.
let's
Yes.
let's see what you got.
That's really cool. I'm revealing the Father. That's really cool. Okay, I love to hear, so what does faith mean to you? I love hearing, because faith is so often only associated with like a certain set of beliefs. So I feel like we could dust it off a little bit and like what does like faith mean to you these days?
I think faith is choosing to move forward in the gap. There's always a gap
Mm,
of knowledge, gap of understanding, gap
yes.
of awareness.
Yes.
Um, and so when you get to the gap,
Yes.
faith is, all right, I don't know how to make sense of this,
Mm,
but I know enough of Jesus to give faith in the gap.
yep.
And I think some people think like faith is this blind thing of like
Yeah.
against all facts. And like to me, it's built on all the facts. It's built
Yes.
on experience. It's built
Right.
on my awareness of everything I've ever encountered of God.
Yep.
But that
Yep.
I never arrive at the infinite, right? So the gap is always where faith is required. And
Mm,
I'm also way more okay with that now because, like, I'm not anti-science at all. I embrace more science than I ever did in my evangelical days. But I'm
yeah.
also aware, like, science can't explain things. And, one of the funniest
Mm,
things to me of, like, the universe is the hugest thing we've ever seen. It's getting
yeah.
bigger. It's expanding, which that thought alone blows my mind. But
Yeah.
the majority of the universe is made
That's a
up
cool
of dark
thought.
matter and dark
Yeah.
energy, and we
Yeah.
don't know what that is.
Yeah.
We don't know what the majority of space is.
Yeah.
Like, that makes me laugh to go,
You're right.
we are really smart in a lot of things. We have figured out a lot of things. And then there's
Yes.
also things you just go, it's mystery. I don't know.
Yes.
And I'm
Yes.
okay these days. My younger two, I was driving to school the other day and they're like, Dad asked something about creation and dinosaurs and whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, these are our guesses. I'm like, we weren't there. So like we're all guessing, and I'm just very comfortable, like, I don't know, this is what I think, but
Right.
I wasn't there. So faith to me is when you get to that point,
Yep.
what do you believe? And
Yes.
you don't believe it because you have any evidence on it. You believe it because of the evidence you have elsewhere gives you the confidence for this. And so to me,
Mm.
the evidence I have in Jesus, the experience I have in Jesus
Mm.
gives me the confidence to choose the gap.
Mm. I love that. How do you hear from God, and what are you hearing right now, if I may ask?
That's good. I don't there's no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah.
I try to be very aware of when God is trying to communicate.
Mm.
And it's usually when I don't want to hear something, when it goes against something that I think or believe or want to be true.
Yeah.
I think therapy has helped me with this actually, of like leaning into stuff that's uncomfortable rather than leaning
Mm.
out. Because a
Mm.
lot of stuff I think God tries to tell me is like
Mm.
initially uncomfortable. Like,
Mm.
what do I do with that insight or whatever?
Mm.
And so a lot of time, I mean, it could be the voice of my wife, to be candid with
Mm.
you, of like she's telling me something that she
Yeah.
sees that I don't really want to hear, but she's probably right. It could be a
That's
kid.
humbling.
Well, talk about when a kid does it to you, like, "Hey, dad, do you know
Oh,
that da
right.
da 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 da?" Or
Right.
point something out, and you're like,
Right.
"Wow, yeah, you're not wrong." And so to me, those are all invitations of the spirit to
Wow.
like, "Oh, I'm learning something about me
Mm.
or God or whatever."
Yes.
I mean, like I said, theologically, I read like a maniac. I love discovering new ideas. I love listening to other people like, "Hey, how are you making sense of this?"
Yes.
I love being in community. I teach twice a month at a Mennonite church right now,
Cool.
and they have this practice that I adore where it's only one service, it's a small community, one
Yeah.
service, and then there's like 45 minutes of discussion of people hanging out, get coffee, donuts, whatever. And then they call it double take. And for an hour, we do like a question and response with whoever wants to stick around, with whoever did the message.
Wow.
So it's not just like, hey, I had a question on this quote, which it can be
Yeah.
that, but it's also getting the community to respond in real time to what was just shared.
Wow.
And I found that God is communicating tons to me through that, of
Yeah.
listening to people. So I
Yes.
just gave the sermon, and yet I'm now listening to people's reaction in real time of how God communicated to them through that sermon and what they heard and what they
Yep.
took away from it.
Yep.
And I am loving that. Loving that. And that's been a really cool way for me to hear from God in this season.
That's really cool. Okay, lastly, I love to end every episode with an invitation to healing, whether that be through like a small mindset shift or a physical practice. Just love healing. It helps me come more alive. Anything that you feel compelled to invite us into for the days ahead.
So I've referenced this numerous times already. I'm a sucker for cataphatic prayer,
Mm.
imaginative prayer.
Ugh.
I love it, and I think you can use it in a variety of ways. You can use it to go back through, like, previous events. So if you have, like,
Mm.
a traumatic event and you go back and you revisit and you just ask, like, "Jesus, where are you here?
Yes.
Like, help me to see where you are in this memory," and inviting, Jesus to show you something.
Ugh.
That's obviously can be painful,
Yep.
but it can be incredibly healing.
Yes.
I did it the other day. I had something happen. This is, like, more in real time, and,
Yeah.
I was really bothered by it, like, it didn't sit well at all.
Yes.
So I was like, "Jesus, you and I need to talk about this because I
Yeah.
literally was like, I don't know where you were."
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
I had, like, this moment where I was like, I need you to show me, like, where were you
Yep.
on Sunday night? Like, I don't know
Yep.
how this took place, like, I don't know where you were." So, to me, that's like a go-to,
Mm.
'cause I think it's so much more tangible for healing
Yes.
than
Yes.
just sometimes words alone,
Yes.
of letting your imagination go there, letting
Yes.
your heart go there.
Ugh.
One of the things I'm learning in counseling
Yeah.
is that I tend to logically try to solve all my problems,
Yeah.
and my counselor has encouraged me
Mm.
to try to do it with more of my emotions.
Mm.
This is a long story, but just kind of
That's
funny,
beautiful.
end note on this.
Yeah.
We realized I had this trauma memory of not
Yeah.
getting a Game Boy when I was, like, 6, and it was bizarre, and I didn't think it was a big deal, but in counseling, I start to realize, like, this thing has, like,
It's
lingered in
like
my
stayed with
life,
yeah. Right.
and my counselor starts, like, unpacking this of, like, "Hey, this is a
Yes.
bigger deal than you realize," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay."
Yeah.
So, he's like, "You need to go buy a Game Boy. This is me
Oh.
today." I'm like,
Yeah.
"What?" He's like, "You need to buy a Game Boy." And I'm like, "That
I
is the
kinda love
silliest thing.
that.
Why would I go and buy a Game Boy?" I was like, "That doesn't make any logical sense." And he said, "Jeremy, you can't logically heal yourself from this one." And he goes, "Go buy a Game Boy and emotionally feel what it feels like to do it." And Kate, you can't see it really, but it's right there in my background, is this Game
Oh,
Boy that I have
yes.
displayed on my shelf that I see because it is a visual
Wow.
sign of healing,
Yes.
and to me,
Oh,
it's a reminder of you can't get there on your logic alone, and that I don't know for everybody, like, that's for me, my reminder of, like, I gotta do that.
that is stunning. That is so stunning. And I kind of like laughed a little bit earlier when you said that Jesus laughed in response to you. And I didn't mean it in an insensitive way, but rather oh my gosh, that's so funny because I have had multiple times in imaginative prayer with Jesus where he has this laugh that just feels so light and free.
Doesn't it?
Yes.
It's a little unnerving.
And I was like, that's just so funny that, I mean, it's like we're meeting in the same place somehow in imagination.
I mean, but
You know,
isn't
like, this
that
is cool.
if you didn't think imaginative prayer was legit, what you just said is so cool. Like, we're experiencing Jesus in similar ways in our separate imaginations with Jesus. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's like trippy. That's
Quantum-y. I don't
yeah.
know what it is. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. Such a joy. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your time and for the work and the stunningness that you put into your book. I'll link it in the show notes, of course, and anywhere else that people can go to find your community.
So jeremyjernigan.com is my website for all the stuff that I do. So that's where you can find I do a couple podcasts, I do a weekly blog post, all the
Yeah, I
stuff with the
loved your
book.
10-minute podcasts. I listened to
Thank
some
you.
this week.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I do those. That's called Rebuilding Faith. It's just trying to
Yeah.
help people put the pieces back
Yep.
together. Like if you're
Yep.
deconstructing, you're like, I don't know what I believe anymore. Like, hey,
Yep.
we'll do 10 minutes of this. So
Yep.
yeah, all of that is at jeremyjernigan.com. And you can see like some of the stuff I do on social media. I put links to it all on there as well. There's a website for the book called edgeoftheinside.com. That's all the stuff just for the book. But yeah, I try to make it easy, put it all in one place because I do a lot of I try to just go wherever my creativity and my imagination goes. So it ends up being a lot of weird stuff all over the place.
I love it. Cool. Well, thank you again. It was a joy to meet you. I feel like we're longtime friends now.
I agree, and I am so grateful for the questions that you have asked. This is a different interview than all the other interviews I've done, and I really have
Mm,
enjoyed the conversation. I've enjoyed the depth that we've gone to, and yeah, I love having these conversations. So
I'm
hopefully
so
your
grateful.
listeners are not too too nerded out by some of it, but I love it, and I so appreciate
Same.
your heart and what you're offering to people in this space.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to Jesus Energy. It's such a gift to connect. It would be a great gift to me if you would leave an authentic review or follow the show. It genuinely helps us to connect with more like hearted individuals and spread the energy of Jesus. I hope you have an incredible day. So much goodness to you.